Hi, this is James Pereira. Now, if you are a business owner or if you are a manager in a large company or even a smaller one or a small one, today we shall talk about how to coach employees. This is part one. And in part one, we shall be just looking at what are the questions you need to prepare yourself before your coaching session. And this is one of the two essential toolkits that you need to have, your question toolbox. Now, stick around till the end when I shall reveal the world's most powerful question that will make sure that your staff actually reveal the truth about what holds them back. So let's dive in now. Questions. And I love this image because when you look at it, obviously it looks like a question mark. Now, if you were to either tilt your head or turn it around, it's pretty obvious that it looks like a hook. And this always reminds me of what Alex Mandoshan said many, many years ago during a conference. And in all his training programs, he always says this: questions hook the mind. What he's trying to imply here is that when you make statements, as opposed to questions, a statement will usually raise a wall or will just prepare the person who is listening to your statement to come up with a reply to rebut your statement. Whereas a question makes someone stop for a moment and think and process the question in order to come up with an answer. Now, if you have ever seen two people fight, and who hasn't, right? I'm sure you may have been involved in one as well. You will notice that when the other party accuses you of something and you just reply to them, it just starts escalating. There's no end to it. But if one party were to just stop and throw a question to the accuser, you would find that the accuser's mind starts reflecting, processing the question. And this is a way that you can actually calm and bring the tempo down a few notches. So that's what is the power behind questions. Now, questions, as Alex Mandoshan pointed out, has a psychological effect. That's where you start thinking. So that's the psychology portion of questions. Now, it also has an impact on your body as well. There are physiological effects of questions. And you can actually notice the differences if you are a keen observer. Number one, you will find that the person that you ask the question to will have the pupils dilate. You will also be able to observe, if you have a microscope at least, that they start perspiring because their sweat glands, the pores of their sweat glands open up. And you may be able to even see that their breathing increases because their heart rate increases, their blood pressure as well increase. So if you pay close attention, you can see these changes taking place in a person's body when you ask a question. And of course, the more stressful the question, the higher the impact of these responses from the body. So you may have realized that this is similar to the fright or flight syndrome. Precisely. That's exactly what questions do. They make a person get prepared for either flying or fighting. And when I say fighting, I mean responding to your question. Now, there are several types of questions. There are going to be two that I'm going to cover. Question type number one. Type one of questions is something you're probably familiar with. Close-ended as opposed to open-ended. I got an example here from the pharmaceutical field. This is an example where you are meeting with a customer, a doctor in this case, and you are asking them, do you see patients with Alzheimer's disease? Obviously, the answer is going to be yes or no. It cannot be a maybe. And very seldom would somebody expand on this answer. So that's why it's closed ended. Now, open ended, as you're probably aware, is something that you can expand on and you can elaborate and you can take even an hour to answer this. I have had in my past, when I was a pharmaceutical rep, ask a simple open ended question, and the customer took about 10 minutes to explain his answer. All I asked was, "What did you do during the weekend?" And that ended up in 15 minutes of what we call in the sales world as the icebreaker. So, coming back to open ended, in this instance, how many schizophrenia patients do you see in a month? Now, pretty straightforward. You cannot answer with a yes or with a no. You have to give a number. And when you ask a question as open ended as this, the customer needs to sit down and recollect how many did he actually see or how many did she actually see over the last month. So there will be a moment of silence when you ask these kind of questions. Now, question type number two is discovery or leading questions. Now, if you look closely at this, discovery and leading questions, the discovery questions are open ended and the leading questions are closed ended. Now, this is something that I used to be fascinated with about LA Law. Now, I'm revealing how old I am. And for those of you who watch LA Law, you know that, or rather, any TV program where there are lawyers or court cases, that lawyers would always ask discovery questions and leading questions. So, a discovery question is an open ended question, and you get somebody to think, elaborate, and expand on the answer. And it cannot be answered with a yes or a no. Example that I have here is, how do you make sure your emails are grammatically correct? So that's going to put a person in a spot if they are full of errors in all their emails. Or if it is someone who is always accurate in their emails, then they would have to reveal to you how they go about making sure that their emails are correct, free of spelling errors, free of grammatical errors. Do they use Grammarly? Do they use the spell check in the email client that you have? Or is it something else that they do? So that's how they reveal what they are doing. Now, the second type of leading questions are questions where you answer with a yes or a no, usually. Example that I have here is, wouldn't speaking to someone clarify things faster than sending 15 emails? Now, if you observe this question, the way I have structured this question, you would realize that if you ask this question to a person who is serious about the discussion that is taking place, there is absolutely no way that they can logically answer that is in the negative to this question. It has to be in the positive. And therefore, the reason why it's called a leading question is you are leading them to a specific answer. It could be a yes most of the time, or it could even be a no. But you are basically wanting them to see the rationale or the rationale behind your question and the rationale behind the answer that you want them to come up with. So that's the power of discovery versus leading questions. Now, for powerful questioning techniques, always use the questions which have W's in them. And there are only 7 of these. So it's pretty straightforward and easy for you to memorize them. And I'm pretty certain you know what these 7 W's are. They are what, where, which, when, why, who, and a how. Now, a how is also a W question because it has a W in it. I didn't say it has to start with a W. So these are the 7 W questions. And when you ask questions with these 7 W's, either one, a mix and match, all 7 or just 1 or 2, and you keep going at it, you'll find that a person needs to sit down for a moment and think, recollect, and remember what has happened. Or they may have to think about solutions to problems that they are currently having. So, this is what empowers them when you are coaching by asking these powerful questions. Now, the best start for coaching is in the beginning, start with discovery questions. And towards the close, always end up with leading questions. So it's like a funnel that you're building up where it is broad and then you're bringing them to a specific area that you want them to focus on and to come up with the answer that you already know what it is. So it's like a funnel, broad and narrow down. So discovery all the way to leading questions. Now, a rule of thumb is when you mix up discovery and leading questions or open versus close, have a mix of between 70% or even 90% open or discovery and closed or leading questions making up just between 10 and 30%. That's a good mix, not the other way around. Then you would have a very powerful discussion, which will be helpful to the person you're trying to coach, your employee you're coaching. Now, here is something that I call Q tips or question tips. The first one is what I call the zip it moment. When you ask a question, you got to be comfortable to remain silent until the answer is given by the person you are directing the question to. Because remember that when you ask a question, we had discovered earlier, the mind is processing. So the moment you are uncomfortable with the silence and you jump in and try to clarify the question or try to lead them in a certain direction, you have lost. They win, you lose. Now, that is a saying in sales. The first person to answer a question loses. So think about it. You got to learn how to be comfortable in silence and just wait. Now, there are techniques that I will reveal later in other videos, which will show you how to get them to answer, even if they do not want to. So that's what I call the zip it moment. When you ask a question, just remain silent. Or if you want to remember this, when you ask a question, shut up. That's it. Now, earlier I had mentioned that I'm going to reveal to you the world's most powerful question. And this is a question that you can use in a scenario where the person you're coaching, your employee, you have been coaching them for several weeks or even months. And each time at the end of the session, your coachee says, yes, yes, they will get something done. But it is left undone. And this is the way the world's most powerful question goes. When they reveal to you that I will get it done, this is when you must turn around, face them, and tell them you have said that you will be doing it over the last 10 days, over the last 3 weeks, over the last 2 months. What's stopping you from getting it done? So, the world's most powerful question starts with what's stopping you? And then fill in the blanks with what the situation is. That's it. Because then you have cornered them and they cannot, there's no wiggle room anymore for them to come up with another excuse. So, what is your biggest challenge when you are using questions during a coaching session? Put it down in the box below. Check out the next video where I shall be revealing the second toolbox that is essential for you to make sure that every coaching session that you conduct is powerful, is transformative for the person you're coaching. And that's going to be what do you use to measure your performance and to be prepared for that coaching session.